It's tough to figure out, but the heat might be on the Romano administration big time when it comes to the IT problem they have.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Of course, if I say UHIP, you say, I don't know, it feels okay, I guess. Nobody knows what this thing is. This is one of the weirdest conversations we have in Rhode Island right now, the UHIP controversy. I'll explain what the acronym is. Actually, Susan Campbell explained what the acronym is because I always forget it and I forget to write it down. But it really is the brain of all the technology in the state right now, which is malfunctioning and which is a big problem for the Romano administration. And now the Justice Department is making inquiries that should make everybody uncomfortable on a couple of different levels. And so Susan will explain that coming up for us this evening. It is great to have you aboard. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Dan York State of Mind saga here on a Wednesday evening. Let's go to the rundown and check on a couple of things. And this is just, we didn't know what to write. So we just left his name up there. Here's the headline. Okay, just tragic, awful. What do you say? Here's the reports.
Prison guards found Aaron Hernandez in his cell shortly after 3 a.m. Prison officials in Massachusetts say the former New England Patriots star hanged himself with a bedsheet that he attached to his cell window. He was taken to a hospital where he was pronounced dead a short time later.
Not guilty.
The 27-year-old's suicide comes just 5 days after he became emotional when he was acquitted of murdering 2 men in Boston in 2012.
Mr. Hernandez was wrongly accused of those crimes.
Guilty of murder in the first degree.
But Hernandez was still serving a life sentence without parole for the 2013 murder of Odin Lloyd, who was dating his fiance's sister. Hernandez was the Patriots star tight end with a $40 million contract when he was arrested for Lloyd's murder and subsequently fired from the team.
Mostly people are just saying tragedy, sadness, the end of a really 4 or 5 year saga.
Prison officials say they are not aware of any suicide note. Hernandez's lawyer said his family and legal team is shocked and surprised that Hernandez never indicated anything like this was possible, and his loved ones are determined to find the truth surrounding his untimely death.
Okay, well, truth. Here's a TMZ headline. Okay. Now, is this the kind of circus atmosphere we need around his loss of life? I don't know. That this kind of thing would be plotted by people inside the prison seems to be quite the reach. But, you know, all you got to do is claim it, and then it's got to be investigated. Just say prayers all the way around. The tragedy that surrounds this young man is just unspeakable. What else is there to be said? Hopefully this doesn't drag out, because family members of all the victims in this case and his family, they really don't need it. Closure, though, really is cliche. Brown University poll is out now as we speak, meaning early afternoon as we record our program. There's a press conference being held to explain some new polling data, kind of an interesting way of doing business. Here's a headline in the Providence Journal today. Kent County still in Trump's corner. By the way, Kent County is in Trump's corner by the hair of the chinny chin chin. Here is a graphic that looks at the voter turnout over all these presidential and federal election years. If you look at the top, Kent County went for the Republican candidate Donald Trump, 46.7% to 46.1%. That is a half a point, and it has been dominantly a Democratic county. And so it's interesting to poll, and what the Brown people did was they took Kent County, Rhode Island, and matched it against a whole bunch of different regions in America. It'll be interesting to see how we kind of compare to the momentum out there. But interestingly enough, some of the early polling data from the country and from this Brown poll confirms that people kind of like their Obamacare right now. That was really kind of a misfire from the very beginning for Donald Trump, and it may just linger for quite some time. Mike Smith is back in the game. This gentleman gave the Senate president a run for her money last time he ran a couple of elections ago. He has announced that he will seek that seat to replace the now retired or resigned Teresa Paiva-Weed. Of course, she left that position to take a hospital position, which I'm sure is an interim position, because we all know she wanted to be a judge. But you can't jump out of the Senate President position and become a judge unless you got something else to do. Bureaucrats, lobbyists, inside players, all setting Teresa Paiva-Weed up just very nicely. Now, how will the people of Newport be served? 4 Democrats are running, and Mike Smith, the Republican. We'll try to get them all in here. And Mike is coming in when? Soon? Coming in Monday to revisit some of the issues that he says dominate his campaign, including suggesting that tourism is overplayed in Newport and Jamestown, and that overall business needs to be improved. Alrighty, speaking of improvement, this UHIP thing desperately needs that. Here's the latest that caused everyone to say, what? False claims probed in the UHIP mess, and it certainly is one. Where am I? Am I still here? Here's what Gina Raimondo said back in the wintertime at a press conference that brought everybody together to finally say, Uncle.
Vendor Deloitte produced for us a defective system. The system they gave us was defective, Eric would say broken, and didn't work. We didn't get what we paid for. We paid them a lot of money. We didn't get what we paid for. And they represented to us that it was in much better shape than in fact it was.
Yep, it was all Deloitte's fault. That was an interesting jump to me. I know I'm here. I'm good. Everybody okay?
Yeah.
We're a little bit more informal here, Susan. Yes. Welcome.
Thank you.
You've been on this case.
I have.
I almost don't even know where to start. I think maybe we should start from the most recent and work our way back. The Justice Department looking at this UHIP thing is troubling on 2 fronts, seems to me. One, that they are, and B, that we had to find out a month later when the Journal kind of dug it up. What's your take?
We're not exactly sure what was in the documents that the state handed over. We know there were 2 different civil investigative demands requesting a whole stack of information, but we don't know exactly what was in all of that information. So that's something still to be determined. We know that
we don't know what they gave them, but we certainly know what the questions are.
We know what they wanted, right?
It was like A to Z.
It was.
Wasn't it?
It was a lot. It was a lot of information that they were seeking. So it kind of is tricky to guess where they're targeting because it was so much information.
It feels like a fraud
requested.
investigation, doesn't it?
It feels like they are. It feels like they've got a lot of questions. I think a lot of us have a lot of questions. How are we so far into a $364 million project that's still riddled with defects? I mean, you know that we've reported most recent data, 1,200 defects still in the system. Most of those defects affecting probably about 50 or so people. So do the math.
Well, look, inefficiency, incompetence, all of that, one thing. Bad behavior, a whole nother matter. What does your experience tell you that when the Justice Department decides that they want to check into this, that it's perfunctory? It doesn't feel like an inquiry from the Justice Department would be that kind of perfunctory, since there's so much federal reporting in other agencies that the states had to do on this project, right?
There are a lot of questions that we really do need some answers to, but it is hard, like I said, to kind of target exactly what they're looking for when it is such a wide scope and a wide net that they've cast.
Right. When we come back, we'll kind of go backwards a little bit and tell you how this whole technology began. And Susan's been following this story pretty closely. We'll tell you what some of the problems are. I guess many of you already know. We'll be right back. All right, so we could go all the way back on this UHIP situation, this big IT problem the state of Rhode Island is having, but here's a more recent kind of catch-up on the story that Susan filed a couple of weeks ago.
Lobby wait times at DHS field offices have leveled off, and the number of pending applications in Rhode Island's UHIP computer system is going down, according to new data released by the state.
I think everybody's been really eager for these signs of progress, and everybody's finally seeing a light at the end of the tunnel.
Now there are 11,638 pending applications, down from 13,612, which we reported last week. That's a 15% drop. Old data from the state showed the backlog topping 27,000 pending cases in March. But acting DHS Director Eric Bean says thousands were duplicates or misclassified as pending. He says this new data about the Deloitte-built system is more accurate and encouraging.
I think that we're going to see some steady progress on the backlog moving forward. We're bringing more staff on board. Improvements to the system continue to be made. We're going to take the time to provide extra training to workers. So we're expecting to continue this progress.
Here's a breakdown of some of the other numbers. There are 353 pending expedited applications for SNAP food benefits, 1,303 pending regular SNAP applications, 700 pending child care assistance applications, and more than 7,500 pending medical applications, which includes Medicaid.
The numbers are baffling. This guy Eric Bean, who was in that press conference, when was that? It was in February, January, February?
Yeah.
The one that we were all at, where the governor kind of coughed up the, all right, uncle.
That was the apology day.
Yeah. It was kind of an admittance, the mea culpa, that, okay, all right, I hear you. I admit it. We're underwater. We're in trouble. And this guy Eric Bean, who's been part of her administration, is now acting Department of Human Services Director. Seems like he knows what he's doing. Yes, an impressive guy.
That's the impression I get. He spent a lot of time visiting all of the DHS field offices. He said that he's really taken some time to dig into exactly what these issues are, and he likes to look at the data. He told me he looks at the data every single day to see which direction it's going.
Well, the data is one thing. The people in long lines in the hallways trying to get their food stamps and all that kind of stuff are a whole nother ballgame. You know, it's funny, we didn't include it in the show, but yesterday we had former Governor Link Chafee on, and he was quick to criticize Governor Raimondo. He was trying to explain that back in the day when the healthcare exchange was first kicked off with Christine Ferguson, that they were abundantly employed in order to be able to troubleshoot any kind of problems that would come up. And although the federal exchange was a nightmare when the Obama administration put it up, the Rhode Island one was better. Ferguson had problems, but she was really kind of owning those problems. And, you know, Chafee makes an interesting point. But I asked him, I said, well, this goes back, and the Justice and the Department of Inquiry goes back to 2011, correct?
Correct.
Which is him. I asked him what the original investment in this whole thing was. He couldn't remember, right, Lex? He was like, I don't remember the number. Do you remember the number? It was under $100 million, wasn't it?
You're putting me on the spot now too. I'm not quite sure exactly what that number.
It's grown exponentially to $364 million.
Right. It was never supposed to get to that, but in the phases and the separate rollouts of the different phases, it's grown and grown.
Define UHIP. It is called the
Unified Health Infrastructure Project.
All right, you pass. So you were a credible journalist on this story, because most of us walk around going, oh, I don't know, UHIP, I don't know. In layperson's terms, explain what it is. It's the brain, right? For the most part, for everything that's technical when it comes to government services.
Right, it's the big computer system. It's this whole network that's supposed to integrate everything that you could ever need from benefits, the healthcare from the state. Everything is supposed to be in a one-stop shop kind of place. So what you should be able to do if you needed benefits of any sort, you should be able to type in your name, send an application, and this system is supposed to pop up with everything that you qualify for, everything that you're eligible for, and it's supposed to be a one-stop shop with the application for everything. And you are supposed to be able to handle that all online, so you don't have to take the trip down to one of the DHS field offices and wait in one of those lines. The idea is great. It just hasn't come to full circle.
Well, from an efficiency point of view, it's great. From a philosophy point of view, there are arguments. Some conservatives in the state, Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity, for instance, at the beginning of the concept of this project, were worried that they would include a healthcare exchange into this kind of one-stop shop for all government services that are provided, thus making it easier for people to be oriented to the idea that the government can do something for you. That's the philosophical, political argument. But we haven't even been able to have that full-fledged argument because the toys don't work and the whole thing is not spitting out the right data. There are underpayments, overpayments, and it's caused real hardship for people who were on the old system receiving their checks or their food stamps, whatever, and aren't getting them now, right?
Right. The priority at this point, according to DHS, is to really target the SNAP applications. The SNAP benefits for food are kind of the most immediate need that need to be addressed, and federal guidelines have a very specific window that the state has to respond to those SNAP applications. 7 days for expedited, 30 days for a regular application, and there are some that are still pending from way back in September, October when this thing launched. So their first priority is to tackle that backlog, get through that, and then they said they're going to move on to some of the other things that are also pressing, but maybe not quite as pressing as food.
Like?
Child care assistance is one of the things that needs to be tackled. There are providers, child care providers, who aren't getting paid. Their data is mismatching, so they don't know who they're getting paid for. The state is still making off-cycle payments to several child care providers to kind of help bridge the gap while they're sorting all of this out.
I'm told nursing homes are having some
Nursing homes
difficulty.
are having a similar problem as the child care
And those
providers.
are big receivables.
Tons of money,
Yeah.
tons of money. I've spoken to different nursing home administrators who are talking about millions that they're unsure of because they get paid after somebody is approved, but you can't keep grandma out of a nursing facility if she needs that skilled care. So she goes in, gets the skilled care, and then it's covered after. And so they're still waiting to find out if these people are even approved for Medicaid.
All right. One of the interesting questions is, why did this all happen? And it really comes down to the kind of rollout. We'll talk about that when we return. Stay with us.
To all of the employees at DHS who have been struggling with this new system, and to all of the Rhode Islanders who have been struggling with the system and endured hardships because the system hasn't worked, I apologize. I apologize. I want you to know we're going to get this right.
Well, that was part of that winter press conference. I guess the big thing on this UHIP rollout, the intersection where this thing became really problematic was the decision by the Romano Administration to just flip the switch, right? Rather than incrementally try to move certain high-profile programs into, some kind of, working status. They just went, okay, let's go.
I will tell you that is significantly above my pay grade. I'm not
Right.
a tech expert, but the way it has been explained to me is that there was truly no other choice. It's either go or don't go. There was no way to kind of phase it in and run the side-by-side pilot programs that the federal government had recommended because of the timing. It would have bumped up against the open enrollment period, and that would have pushed us several months back. And that would have been added cost on the other end. So that was the way it was explained.
But the governor also, at that event, if I recall, said some things like, I was told that it would be good, I was told that it would be fine, and they let people go, thinking that the technology would supersede some of the human need, right? And they left themselves, with dozens of employees short to be able to recover the performance of the old program, triage the new program. They really were left kind of, excuse the terminology, kind of with their pants down a little bit, weren't they?
And since most of those employees have been called back, they realized that they really did need that subset of people who had a ton of institutional knowledge. So they called them back. They have some temporary employees coming back too to kind of fill in the gaps and try to tackle that backlog.
On the whole mission, was it just a project that was intended to create one-stop shopping, or was it something that was supposed to save a lot of money operationally?
Supposed to save a lot of money operationally,
Not yet,
millions
right?
and millions.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Because all of these employees had to be not only retained but recovered.
Right. And we don't have estimates for what the new projections are. That's not part of the budget yet, that because of all of the changes that have happened, but that will be an interesting number to find out when it is part of the next budget.
The Deloitte relationship is an interesting one. One of the things that was fascinating, I thought disturbing, after that big press conference that you've seen some clips from, it was only days later that the governor actually went to a seminar in California that was sponsored by Deloitte. She never mentioned it. I had asked a question at that press conference, well, when is the Deloitte CEO going to show up here? The CEO, I think, ought to be like making breakfast for the Raimondo family every morning in her own version of, you know, apology for the way this whole thing has gone down. Yet the governor went to California, and her excuse was, well, I have a chance to meet the CEO. I have a chance to meet the CEO. Didn't you find that kind of strange?
The relationship is definitely interesting, and from what the governor and her staff say, there are a lot of tense conversations behind the scenes because the governor, from what she says, isn't happy. She's clearly dissatisfied with what's going on. So you can take her at her word that she is frustrated and trying to hold them accountable, not paying, withholding payments. I don't know the context of the behind-the-scenes
Suing
conversations.
and working with an entity, though, and I asked this question, suing and working with an entity simultaneously is no easy task. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how this whole relationship, you know, rolls out. It seems like they are in this soup together. I don't know if we've reported on any precedent for bailing out of a contract like this and having another vendor coming in and kind of creating some kind of troubleshooting and triage, have we?
I mean, the question has been brought up, and the answer to the question is that it's just simply not possible to go back. There's no way to reactivate the old information, start over again.
Well,
building
reactivate the old information. The old system. The system, like the information has to exist.
Correct.
But there's no way
to go back. You can't go back in time, is the answer that we've all been told, because we have asked that question, is that an option? And from what the state says, no. This is a system that we have now, so this system has to be fixed.
What's your gut tell you about this Justice Department inquiry and whether we'll know something more? I thought the Romano Administration made a mistake in not getting ahead of this, letting the press kind of dig this out as opposed to announcing, hey, by the way, we've had to respond to the Justice Department. What do you think the timetable will be, real quick?
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. The information was due to the Justice Department on the 10th of this month.
They didn't make it. They didn't get all of it, or did they? Well, we heard about it after. After they supplied
right.
it. All right. Well, a good, thorough review. Appreciate your work on this.
Absolutely.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back. I had a chance yesterday to meet Ed Asner, the famous actor, 7 television Emmys. He's working on a Rhode Island-based film called The Santa Files. Take a look on some of this. This is kind of funny.
We'll see what kind of repercussions that will occur from my speaking out with you. I've indicted the FBI in this little conversation. I've spoken against Donald Trump. Let's see what happens.
What's next for you?
I may take you with me.
You didn't hear all the audio there, but Ed was suggesting that the FBI not doing its job on the Russian investigation of Trump. We'll talk more about that as we go, but an interesting visit with the great actor, Ed Asner. See you on the radio tomorrow at 3.